Key talks over Iran's nuclear program enter their final phase in Vienna this weekend, but officials have already warned an agreement could be delayed until March. Joining us on set now is our Middle East correspondent Hadley Gamble. Hadley, if they fail to reach an agreement, will that just push Iran and Russia closer together?
It's highly possible, and I think that they've already had a strategic relationship for years, as we know. They certainly are in agreement on what's happening in Syria, for example. But at the same point, you have to understand, all eyes are on Secretary Kerry right now, and he's really pushing to keep this deadline, to keep them on track for this deadline of Monday. We've seen Philip Hammond come out. We've seen a lot of doubt in terms of, the Iranians even saying we don't think we can make this deadline. The Russians saying the same thing. But Secretary Kerry is really trying to push for that, and the reason for that, of course, is because if they fail to meet this deadline, President Obama could run into some problems with this new Republican Congress.
That's exactly right. I mean, in January, when we do have that Republican Congress in place, Republicans have been very vocal on how they actually want to impose further sanctions on Iran. So how does that complicate matters even more?
Well, so they don't like this deal, and they haven't liked this deal for a long time. The conservatives, especially in the Congress that's coming in January, are basically saying, if we don't get exactly what we want, then we are going to have to be tougher on Tehran. And the worry here is, of course, the technicalities. Now, the president, of course, can work out a deal where he suspends some of these sanctions, but inevitably Congress is going to have to lift them permanently.
And does that then make President Obama even look weaker then to citizens who, of course, he's been looking at putting together a deal with Iran for a while now?
Yeah, and we've heard even from the Iranians, they've commented on this in the past, basically saying that the president, because he has to talk to Congress, is in a tougher spot, is in a weaker spot than they are themselves. But you also have to remember that on the flip side, Mr. Rouhani, part of his popularity and part of his success politically is tied to these negotiations as well. And if you're talking about the feeling in Tehran, these folks are saying, we've come to the table. We're talking to the U.S. for the first time in decades. We've done our part. Now the United States has to do theirs.